Raise the hands. Who's 11? Is this 11th and 12th grade, right? Yeah.
Pretty much.
Okay. Who's a junior? Raise your hand. Okay, so two juniors. Everybody else senior level? Okay. So 12th grade and then 11th grade. Okay, great. That's great. So did you guys, is this an elective course for you guys?
It's a CT elective course.
Great. That's great. All right, fantastic. How many, show of hands, watch local news here in Fresno? So 2, 3, 4. Okay. Who watches local news on your phone, on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever else you all have right now? Okay, good. Okay, good. I heard something the other day that said, television's a dying medium. I'm like, well, is it? Because television is where you're watching. It's on your phone, that's still television, right? You're televising something that you're actually watching and consuming. So what kinds of things do you guys like to know about at your age level? What makes you stop scrolling on your phone with your thumb? What do you stop on? Anybody? What kind of content do you like? Anything? Yeah, any kind of content. Is it the person delivering it? Is it the content itself? Is it the image? Is it the video? Is it the graphic? Is it the sound? What do you think kind of catches the video? Great. You're in a video production class, multimedia video production class. That's perfect for you guys. So what I do, I'll give you a little bit of background about me. So Jeff and I, like you said, we worked at Channel 30 together. I was the executive news producer for the 10 and 11 o'clock news at the time. And then I got promoted to assistant news director for a while there as well. And now I'm currently the news director at Fox 26. So my job is to enhance everybody else's career. That's my job. My job is not to tell people you must do. No, my job is to build people up and to make them understand that they're better than they ever thought they could be. That's my job. I'm kind of a coach in a way, a coach that coaches videographers, producers, assignment editors, reporters, anchors, other managers. So in a way, I'm kind of like, Coach Tedford, right? Fresno State. So I really am in charge of that. That's my job. I also love to dig into the editorial content that we are delivering each day. What is it we're telling people about? What's important to the community? What's important to this audience at this age group? What's important to this audience that lives in the North Valley, this audience that lives in the South Valley, this audience that lives on the West Side, the East Side, the mountains? So I kind of have to have that big perspective in my head every day that we go into our news. We have 5 hours of morning news we do every day. So today, we've already been on the air 5 hours. We started at 5 a.m. We just got off the air at 10 a.m. We're going to go on the air again at 11:30 a.m. for a half hour, and then we have a 10 o'clock news tonight, which other stations in town have more news during the afternoons. We have a lot in the first part of the day, and then we have the big newscast at the end of the day. So it depends. So like at ABC 30, they've got a 4, a 4:30, a 5, a 6, a 6:30. So theirs is really kind of scrunched into that afternoon hour. So our big push is in the mornings. So that's sort of the overview of that. So what are you guys most interested in hearing about? Because I don't want to bore you guys. When you hear news director, what do you guys think? What is that? Anybody?
Person who runs the news.
Person who runs the news, okay. That's a good one. Anybody else? Nobody else? No ideas? No? What do you think about news? What does news mean to you guys? How does it impact you?
Gives you information.
Gives you information.
Around
Absolutely. Do you feel that news is an important part of a community? Like, how do you learn about stuff that's happening in your community? Important? Yeah? News? Yeah? So I'll kind of walk you through my day. So I get up in the morning. What do you think a news director does when they wake up?
Coffee?
Coffee for sure. Yes, there's a winner. Yeah, coffee for sure. And then I get on my email to make sure that nothing has blown up overnight, that nobody's called out sick that day, that I don't have people that are fighting in the newsroom, which I don't, so it's a good thing, to make sure that we are on top of what I would consider the newsworthy big news stories of the day, watching our local newscast in the morning, making sure that we're on top of all the day's news, that we're not skewing away from what we feel is important to people in the valley to be watching. We cover a large area. We cover from Visalia to the south, Visalia, Delano, all the way up north, Merced, Chowchilla, east up into the foothills, which push up against Yosemite, Sequoia National Park, west, Firebaugh, Dos Palos, Los Banos. We have a huge area of coverage in the valley. You know how many reporters I have in the morning to cover all of that? I got two reporters. So we have to really pick and choose what we are going to focus our attention on that we think is going to be important that day to the audience that's going to be tuning in or viewing us on their phone or watching us on a stream or DVRing us or watching us on delay. What's important? And on top of that, what are we doing on digital that's going to be important as well coming off of that morning show? Because not everybody's going to be watching at 5 a.m. to 10 a.m., but they may be jumping on their phone when they wake up. Might be pulling up our app, getting a breaking news alert, getting information through our Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Twitter, or X, all of those things we have to keep in mind every single day, all those different platforms. So we have to be multi-platform, multi-thought on all of these things. And this evolves all the time, right? When I first started in the business in 1994, we had television. In 1998, we had this thing online that said kcra.com coming soon for a year until it finally launched. So now we've got internet, and then we got all the social media, and then we got smartphones that come onto the scene. So our audience needs and desires and the way they want to consume things has changed and evolved over time. It kind of happens, sometimes it'll happen quick, sometimes it'll happen really just sort of over time, and all of a sudden everybody's got a smartphone in their pocket. That happened in a matter of just a couple of years in the late 90s. So we have to, as news people, as production people, understand where is it that people are watching stuff. You guys, I'm sure Jeff will talk about this, you know, if he hasn't already in class. When you shoot video for television, we're 16 by 9 in our framing. You have to shoot it a certain way so it fills the screen, right?
That's aspect ratio.
Aspect ratio, exactly.
That's the vocabulary that we've already touched upon.
Absolutely. Aspect ratio on your phone is flipped, 9 by 16. So it's a nice vertical aspect ratio. So when we've got our news crews out there, they've got to be understanding, hey, look, you're going to be on 16 by 9 and 9 by 16. So reporters with a phone are also shooting video at the same time their photographer is probably shooting the bigger video for television. So that's all in play as well. So it's this multifaceted, continual spinning of plates that we're always doing. I got flaming swords, you know, kind of up and down all day long, and we kind of have to toggle. So multitasking and listening and working as a team is super important. Super important. So if you guys haven't done team assignments yet in this class, I'm sure you've done team assignments throughout your career in school already. It's super important. Because if I got a team that's not functioning well as a team, then all those things that we just talked about, something is going to fall through, right? So it's working with a team and communicating well with one another and getting along with your teammates is super, super important. And understanding that each teammate's going to bring a little bit different perspective to something than you might, and understanding that and appreciating that is super important. Because if you can lean into what somebody else knows that you don't, and they can lean back into you and learn something that they don't, we're better together doing that, right? Where there's friction is when you got people that are in competition with one another in a newsroom or in a classroom. Oh, I'm better than them. I'm going to show them. I'm going to prove it. Who wins in that? Nobody, really. You might win yourself for a minute, but it's not going to better the overall picture or overall project. So that's a little bit kind of like the 20,000 foot level of where I sit every day. So I started out in Sacramento. Actually, when I was in a classroom much like this in 1994, when I was a senior in high school, I did a project. My senior project was on how a news station operated. So I went down to KOVR, CBS television in Sacramento. I lived in a little town called Grass Valley. It's about an hour northeast of Sacramento. And so I did a whole video project. I took a video camera down, took video of what happened at the television station. I showed all the tapes, I showed the reporters, and I put together my senior project on how a news station operated. So that's what got me going. That's what really fired up my engine at that time. 3 days after I graduated high school, graduated on a Friday, the following Monday, I was in that newsroom as an intern, incoming freshman at Sacramento State University. So I was lucky in that I found my passion early in what I wanted to do. And maybe if this isn't your passion, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but find your passion and run with it. Go with it. Don't let anybody get in your way. I figured it out. I didn't even know how to get into Sac State. So you know what I did? I drove to the campus and I found some guy walking around on campus and I said, hey, I'm an incoming freshman. How do I sign up? Oh, you go over there. Okay, cool. If you guys let me do an internship on Monday, I'll sign up for your school today. Really? Most internships take place when you're a junior. I said, I don't care. You let me into your school and let me intern, I'll come into your school. I did it. So I signed it up myself. So take initiative. Take that initiative, that leap of faith. Talk to people. And I think that's one thing that I've noticed as a hiring manager too, because guess what? I also hire people. I'm looking at hiring an anchor reporter right now. I'm looking at hiring a multimedia journalist right now. I just hired a producer. I've hired probably 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 people in the last 2 years. So when I'm looking to hire people, I'm looking for people of character, people that are going to be dedicated and passionate about what they're doing, somebody that can work on the team, somebody that understands what they don't know, but they're going to go figure out how to figure it out. That's the kind of people I'm looking to hire. And if you come into it with that attitude, I guarantee you're going to do well, you're going to get promoted, or you're going to get off to a bigger market.
What type of skills are you looking for right now?
People that can write and communicate. I will tell you guys one thing that will separate you all from the pack is if you can communicate and not just on your phone. Talk to one another. Being able to have a discussion as a group and figure out problems. There are so many people I don't lump people together, but in your generation or the generation that just graduated that are coming into our industry that don't know how to talk to people. And I'm having to train people how to talk to people. It's really difficult. So if you guys, especially reporters, photographers, because photographers are photojournalists, really, you're going to go out and ask a lot of questions too. You're not just a photographer. We jumped over that many, many years ago. Photographers are photojournalists. You're going to go out and you ask questions. You get to be eyes and ears for a television station, a broadcast operation, whatever it winds up being. But people that can speak and communicate and think about things critically are going to do well in whatever industry they get into now. So if you want to separate yourselves from the pack, ask questions. Ask questions, lean in, be proactive. Because that is something, and I don't understand it too, because you guys have grown up when, the second you were born, you had smartphones. I didn't get a smartphone until I was like 30, 25, whatever it was. So you guys have had that your entire lives, so it's a different perspective from what I'm used to. But I can tell you that when people grow up with the phone in their hand their entire lives, and then they graduate college and they all of a sudden expect a job, well, the expectation is you know how to talk to people too. And this is not talking to people, texting, voice, whatever. It's talking to people one-on-one. Because in our industry, you're going to be talking to strangers all day long, people that you might not know. You'll get to develop sources, you'll get to develop people you do talk to quite a bit, but when you're doing news stories, you're going to be bumping into people left and right that you don't know. And so being able to talk to people and get people to open up and talk to you is such an important skill right now that's so hard. And to think critically about what they're saying to you, not just asking them questions to hear, asking them questions to listen. And then that way you can formulate a better question to come up with another answer that might be better than the one they just gave you. So those are kinds of things to be looking at and trying to figure out. So how many people in here have had a smartphone for 3 years or more? Raise your hand. Okay, most of you. Not a bad thing. I'm not saying it's bad. It's a good thing, right? You get a lot of good information out of it. You get, alerts. That's how you've learned. That's how you learn about your world. So how do you determine what's a good source of information versus what's a not so good source of information? Anybody? Anybody know? How do you determine truth from fiction online in the world that we're living in, especially in a political season that we're in right now? There's going to be a lot of talk on both sides. How do you determine what's true and what you're going to believe and what you're not going to believe?
By the sources.
By what?
By the sources.
By the sources, yep. And how do you judge whether a source is a good one or not? Evidence, okay. Something you've seen over and over again, right? It's you've seen TMZ, you kind of know what they're about, right? They've reported on, news on entertainment subjects for many, many, many years, right? They don't usually get it wrong until they said that Beyonce was going to go to the thing the other night and she didn't. But that's the only one of the recent memories that TMZ's gotten wrong. They're a good source because you've trusted them over time and they haven't really let you down, right? So that's good. the more and more sources that are out there. I mean, how many TikTokers are out there now? Can anybody got a guess? I mean, I have no idea. All these people that are sitting there with a microphone in their bedroom, are they a good source? Or do they have agendas? You got to look at agendas, right? Look at agendas. The things that sell online right now are things that divide people and skew a certain direction because they're catering towards a certain audience that likes to be reaffirmed of what they believe. I believe that person because that's what I believe. I'm going to watch them more. So you have to be careful of your sources, right? So independent sources like broadcast news stations, ABC 30, 24, 47, 26, we try and give you both sides of the story as much as we can so that you can then determine whether or not you're going to believe it or not. Our job is not to try and twist you into believing something. Our job is to present the information so you can maybe dig a little deeper if you want and go figure it out yourself. So that's really our job in this day and age. So when I first started, it was 4 channels on TV that had broadcasts. Now I'm up against Google, Facebook, all these crazy algorithms that are going to feed you guys stuff that you like over and over and over again because you've liked it before. You're going to like something else, and you're going to keep piling on. So it's an interesting world that you're walking into right now. Lots of people with phones. Everybody with a phone is also a videographer, right? Because you got a camera right on that phone. So there's a lot of people taking a lot of video that might get distorted just so they can get more clicks, more views, more likes, more shares, more comments, whatever it is they're trying to get. They're all trying to get views so they can get money, right? All these content creators, that's what they're doing. So you got to keep that stuff in mind as you're looking at stuff on your phones. There's oftentimes an agenda behind things. So ask yourself, what do you think that agenda is? And that'll help to lead you to whether or not it's a good source or not. So, all right, I've spent a lot of time yakking. All right, well, who's got questions? Any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah, Joe.
What's the difference? Obviously, local news is a lot different than it is than the main, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have an agenda, obviously.
Yep.
How does it differ? And when did that transfer on over? Because we were supposed to be able to tell both sides equally. Now it's a different story. If you're against Trump, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
One station will totally just not give you any of the facts.
Yep.
And I don't know if that's, I've left local news, it's been some time, but do you guys still tell both sides, or is it more driven towards an agenda?
Sure, it's a great question. Local news, at least from my experience, local news is doing the best we can to present both sides. Best we can. I think things changed probably in the mid to late 1990s. This is way before you guys were born, right? So talking a long time ago, ancient times, right? But late 1990s, something happened in our industry. Cable news. Actually, cable news started in 1980. CNN started in 1980. I worked with the original anchor team of CNN when I was in Sacramento. Dave Walker and Lois Hart, the original anchor team from CNN, I worked with them. CNN started in 1980. From about 1980 until about 1995, CNN was all about just breaking news, international news, what's happening, just present news. Mid-1990s, things changed. Fox News came on the scene, MSNBC came on the scene. All of a sudden, there's all this competition now on cable news for attention. And what started to happen, and what really has happened, is that one side caters to this audience that really, really likes them. This side caters to this audience that really, really likes them. And like what we were just talking about, they get reaffirmed, people get reaffirmed by listening to things that they agree with. If I'm anti-Trump, well, there's an anti-Trump channel for me, right? I'm gonna go find it on cable. If I'm pro-Trump, there's a pro-Trump side. Actually, there's a couple of them, actually 3 of them now, that are pro-Trump. I'm that way, I'm gonna go watch them. So this splinter happened in about the mid to late 1990s when cable news came on the scene and started to really try and attract an audience. And it worked. Rupert Murdoch figured it out with Fox, and then MSNBC figured it out on their side. And then I think with CNN since they were the original one that really kind of got going with great breaking news and international coverage, I think they were trying to figure out, well, which way do we go here? And I think they were kind of going one way for a while, and now they're kind of shifting back, and I think they're trying to find somewhere in the middle, because you got your MSNBC that's got this crowd, Fox has got this crowd, OAN's got this crowd, Newsmax has got this crowd, so CNN is trying to figure out, well, how do we get kind of both sides of both those crowds and stay relevant? So it's an interesting time. But I think, so there's your national news, and then that's on cable. Your national broadcast news, NBC, CBS, ABC, your more traditional ones, even they have got a little bit of bent to them. You got to be kind of careful about that as well. They're not as bad as your cable news, but they definitely have a bit of a slant. So you got to really pay attention to that. Which is why you, as a consumer coming into this world, you got to think critically. You really do. Otherwise, you don't want to just get fed stuff and just believe it hook, line, and sinker, because you want to look at, okay, what's their agenda? Do they have one? Maybe watch a couple different stations and kind of get a different perspective on how that one told that story, how that one told the same story. What's the difference? Why is there a difference? Should there be a difference? Ask those questions of yourself. And same thing as when you're reading stuff as well. So, anybody read Fresno Bee? Who grew up in the household that had the Fresno Bee? Couple, just a couple. Yeah, local newspapers are going away, guys. We've seen a lot of papers shut down in the last 10, 15 years. There's news deserts. We call it news deserts. There's sections of this country where they have zero news that covers that community at all, because the newspaper went under. Because the advertisers dried up, subscriptions dried up, people weren't reading them as much. So there's news deserts out there too, which is unfortunate. There's certain things at the state capitol they're trying to do, come up with crafty ways to get news back into those communities. But again, you start throwing state dollars and taxpayer dollars, is there going to be a slant behind that too? There may be. So
if there's students here who want to become maybe a reporter or maybe a photojournalist, can you talk on both what they need to do in order to get into the field?
yeah. So we'll start with photojournalist. If you want to be a photojournalist, pay attention in classes like this. Take advantage of it while you have the time to take advantage of it. I know you feel like, oh, I'm just in high school, it doesn't really matter. No, it matters. What you do right now matters. What did I tell you? I graduated on a Friday from high school, and I was in a newsroom 3 days later. It matters what you're doing right now. It matters how you interact with your classmates, your instructor, your projects you guys are working on together. It's important. I tell this to college students too at Fresno State. I speak there all the time too. I say, don't think that what you're doing today doesn't hold importance. It does. So if you want to be a photojournalist, lean into photojournalism. Learn everything you can about it. Learn everything you can in this class. At Fresno State or City or wherever you go, there's a lot of great schools. And I don't care if you go to USC, Fresno State, Mizzou, Syracuse. I've hired people from all over the place. The ones that do the best aren't the ones that have a Syracuse degree, a USC degree. The ones that do the best are the ones that are passionate about what they're doing. They're continually learning, even outside that school setting that they were in. But they started in the school setting. So do the school projects at your university level, whatever they are, but do it to the best of your ability and ask a lot of questions.
Can you define what a photojournalist is in case some people don't quite understand
Yep.
what a photojournalist is?
Sure. Photojournalist is what Jeff did. A photojournalist is somebody that's going out there with a camera, somebody that's asking questions. Maybe the photographer photojournalist gets an assignment from somebody like me, somebody like an assignment editor at the broadcast television station. Photojournalist takes all their gear, you take the lights, you take your tripod out to the assignment, and then you start shooting interviews. You have an idea what the assignment is going into it, but then you start asking questions. And maybe it was supposedly a story about this, but you noticed something else while you were out there because you've got your eyes and ears open to that and you're asking good questions and it leads you to a better story. So photojournalists are I guess you're explorers. You're explorers and you're hunter-gatherers because you've gotten a piece of equipment that can go get great visuals for a story. Every great story's got to have visuals. I can't just stand here, tell you about a great story. If I stood here for an hour and told you all about the Titanic sinking, and yet James Cameron's over here showing you the movie Titanic, what you gonna watch? The one with the visuals. The photojournalists are providing those visuals. So that's what a photojournalist is. They're going and finding those great visuals. They're gonna bring you into that story. bring you into the emotions of that world. Looking the medium shot, the tight shot, the natural sound, because natural sound, when it plays by itself on TV, it all of a sudden makes you go, huh, what was that? That's a photojournalist. Their eyes and ears for everything that we do. So that's it in a nutshell, I think.
What about the reporters?
So the reporters are the ones that are going out. They're going to have to craft the story. They're going out with a photojournalist. Some stations still, we've got 2 team players, or sometimes even the reporters, the photojournalists themselves too. We got multimedia journalists that are taking a camera out with them, and they're shooting their own stuff. But the reporter is the one that's asking hard questions, asking questions on behalf of the community that the community can't ask themselves, because the photojournalist has the opportunity to go talk to the mayor, talk to publicly elected officials, hold them accountable for things that they say they were going to do. Are they doing those things or not? The reporters are asking those questions. The reporters are also finding good, interesting people stories too. We just told one this morning about the Flightline Cafe over here at Chandler Airport. It's been a great Chinese restaurant for 30 years. Who knew, right? Best Chinese in town is at Chandler Airport. The people that have been running that are retiring tomorrow. So we talked to the ones that are retiring, and then we talked to the new ones that are going to come in and kind of change up the menu. But the reporter found all those people, put them all together, wrote the story, turned in the script to an editor or a photojournalist who then edited the story together with the great natural sound, the great interviews, the great visuals of the food and the menu. They put that together. So that's your reporter.
Anyone
Yeah.
have any questions? Any
Did you come
questions
with the
regarding?
people that are recording outside?
What's that?
Did you come with the people?
Oh no, I came because Jeff asked me. Yeah, Jeff and I go back a ways, so.
Oh, I thought you were gonna go like back down.
Oh no, I came for you all. I came for you guys because Jeff asked me, because that's, you know what, that's a relationship. We build relationships too, right? We have great people we work with throughout the years. I mean, I've got people that I know across the country because I've been doing this for too long. But I've got a lot of good friends across New York and everywhere, LA, Sacramento still here, obviously, but lots and lots of good people across the country. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know how many news directors wind up talking at high school classes, but you have one because I know Jeff. And I wouldn't just do this for anybody. I mean, my time is pretty valuable. I'm sure that when I get back, I got a pile of work that's building up for me, but I don't care. I want to help Jeff, and I want to help you guys, because I think it's important for me to be talking to the next generation of people coming into this. Because I didn't get that when I was in high school. No, nobody's coming to Grass Valley, California to talk to me about what a news station is. But if I can do that for the next generation of you all to help you understand what you're getting into, I'm all about that. So that's why I'm here. I have no other agenda other than just to be here to help. And maybe hire one of you guys someday if you really want to work in my news station. I'm always looking for new and up-and-coming talent.
It's good to see people from the industry come and talk to you guys, right? Because
Yeah.
then it really makes it real, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Cook can talk about it, but if someone else comes in and kind of reiterates what Mr. Cook talks about, then you can be like, oh, that's true, right? And it's always good to hear from someone else, another perspective, right? I used to always like it when I was in college and individuals would come in. You guys aren't even in college. You guys should feel blessed to have people come in. You should be blessed to have this class. I didn't even have this class in high school, right?
Yeah.
You're able to have hands-on. When we get the equipment, which will probably be next week, you guys are going to be able to really, if you really want to do this type of career, you guys, the sky's the limit, right? Because you guys are going to get in on the ground floor, and you guys are going to be able to really do some really great things if you want to. This isn't going to be a class, this might not be your passion, like Jim said, but if it is, and you're open-minded, and you notice that you do really well, right, with videography, this is a place for all of us to be able to create, right, to have our voice be heard, right? So what better place than this to do that, right? So, and then when we get individuals who come in and talk, gives you an opportunity to hear from their perspective as well as ask them any questions. And I think it's a great thing. You guys have anyone have any questions for this gentleman? I don't want to always ask them. Jennifer,
What
go
do
ahead.
you do to stay calm when like a project doesn't go as planned?
If something doesn't go as planned? Good question.
Restate the questions just so that.
Oh yeah. So what do I do if something that at work doesn't go as planned? Is that what you're asking? Yeah. So I have a board. I have a board in my office that I write little statements on. Over the years, I've worked with great people that have given me information about how to go about my life, how to go about my day. One of the quotes I actually wrote the board from myself was, "Seek clarity during crisis." I learned that when I worked in Oklahoma City. I worked in Oklahoma City for 3 years, from 2010 to 2013. We had tornadoes, we had hail, we had floods, we had all kinds of things that could kill people. So what we did really mattered every single day. People were watching us because they wanted to stay alive. I'd set up a plan of how we were going to cover this storm. Well, guess what? Mother Nature doesn't really go by plan, right? The tornado is going to go someplace. It might not go where I want it to go. So I got to be nimble enough to understand that my plan might not be the one that I have to stick with, but I got to be amenable to changing the plan based on new information that's coming in. And so that seek clarity during crisis has served me so well since I wrote it down almost 10 years ago. I still use that to this day. And it applies to situations that aren't tornado related. It applies to situations where a reporter is going out on a story, the story doesn't work out, it falls apart. What's our plan B? And what's our plan C and D and E if we need them? How can we work it within the time frames that we have and still come out with a story that's worth telling, that's going to be interesting to the audience and relatable to the audience and is worth doing and worth our time? Because at the end of the day, that's what we have to ask ourselves. That question is, like I said, I got 2 reporters to cover thousands and thousands of square miles of this valley. Where do I put them to make a difference, right? So we have to ask those questions. What's the most important thing of the day? And sometimes that story might fall apart. I better have something because our audience is expecting us to still cover something that might be of interest to them. So, yeah. So that's interesting. And then, you know, I have difficulty sometimes with people working together. Talked about teamwork, right? Even in the professional world, some people don't get along as well as they should. I'm also a therapist, if you didn't realize. News directors are therapists, you know. People cry in my office sometimes, it happens. So I have to kind of walk people through, hey, how do you work with your team better? How do we build this relationship back up that might have been fractured when they were out on an assignment? What was it that led to that? Why do we have a difficulty? Let's work through that, because you know what? The audience that lives out there in these 20,000 square miles in Fresno County, they don't care. They don't care you were fighting in that car. All they care about is what we do on air and on their phone. That's it. So kind of redirecting to what's important. What's important stays important, right? All the other stuff that kind of gets in the way of what's important, it's getting in the way. So redirecting and reimagining how we can go about our day to hit that importance again is what gets me through some of those situations most of the time. Sometimes those situations I can't do anything about, but we try and work through them as best we can. What challenges? Lots of challenges. So challenged with trying to keep our audience. Television audiences are dropping a little bit, so we've got to figure out, okay, how do we keep them? Can we still build on that? And if we can't, then on the digital side, how do we build our digital audiences to the point where we can still earn enough revenue to keep people working, right? That's part of it. We need to have enough revenue to be able to pay people that are doing this, because it costs money to go cover news. It costs money to produce content. I think Netflix has figured that out. They're not cranking out as much as they used to because it costs a lot of money to create content. You have to hire people, you got to hire staff, you got to writers and all that. So, so finding a way to keep the audience engaged is definitely a challenge. Great content, great writing will always work. So we try and find that and then highlight it to a point where it's easy for the people to understand why it's important, easy for them to digest, whether it's on their phone, whether it's in a smaller format, whether it's in a written format, whether it's in a video format. So that's probably the biggest challenge facing our industry right now, is just keeping relevancy. And I've talked about that for about 10 years. How do we stay relevant? How do we stay relevant? And I asked you earlier, how many people had a Fresno Bee subscription? Only 2 people raised their hands. That's a problem for the Bee, right? Well, that's why they're at where they're at. They don't have that many news stories. They don't have any reporters anymore because there's just not that much revenue driving it. So those eyeballs are important. Have to keep them. So that's a difficulty. Hiring good people is another really big challenge for me, you know, because we've got finite amount of dollars to spend on hiring. I get one shot at hiring somebody, and you know, it's a hit and a miss sometimes. Sometimes, you know, you interview somebody, they interview great, They seem like they're everything that you need, and then they get in and they just can't communicate with the team. They can't work with the team. That's a very big challenge. Fortunately, I'm blessed now that we don't really have that problem, but I've had that. I've been at Fox 26 for 3.5 years, and so we've had that scenario, and it's hard. It's really hard because it can be taxing on the team if there's somebody that's not pulling their weight. In class, somebody who's not pulling their weight, the A+ students will pull them out of it. When you get into the working world, the A+ employees can't really make a photojournalist be a photojournalist if they're not doing the job, right? It's different. So you all fail. It's a difficulty. So hiring good people with good character that can communicate well and can learn. People that are still willing to learn. That's a challenge. So when you interview with a person like me, I'm asking some pretty hard probing questions. So because I'm trying to get to the heart of who you are. What's your character? I think Jeff's got something on the board back there that talks about character. Watch your character, his last bullet point. Last one.
Yeah.
For it becomes your destiny. True. Read that every day you walk in this classroom. Your character will be your destiny. I guarantee it. Mine started early. I started when I was young because I knew what I wanted to do, and that became my destiny. I was going to do it come heck or high water. Some little kid from Grass Valley was going to work in television news, and anybody was going to tell me otherwise, and I wasn't listening to anybody because that was my destiny. I knew it. My character was all about being the best person that I could in that industry to learn everything I could. Your character will define your destiny out of this school, into the next college that you're going to, or into the career that you're going into. That's the one thing I can't train. I can't train good character, right?
One other question that we've been focusing on within the multimedia careers, how important is it for someone to have experience versus having a degree? Like, I mean, is it possible to hire someone without a degree if they have experience? Like, for instance, take someone from this class.
Mm-hmm.
They've got experience. You've seen some of their portfolio work. They've turned it into you.
Yep.
However, they do not have a college degree.
Sure.
Do they have a potential spot as a photojournalist?
I think absolutely. So my last photojournalist that I just hired, like one of the two on our morning show, he just finished College of Sequoias. He has an AA degree. He's going into Fresno State. But when he was at COS, he was a student reporter, a student journalist. He was shooting video, telling stories, writing for the paper. He didn't have a full, repository of work for me to look at and draw from. I could tell from what he had already done, with the resources that he was given, the time that he had, and where he was, that he was taking full advantage of absolutely everything that he had. I hired him. He just moved into the dorm the other day at Fresno State. He's a photojournalist in our morning show, working for that 5-hour show. He was just out on a major breaking news story this morning. I don't know if you guys got it on your push alerts, but there was a fatal accident in Madera up here on Avenue 12. The guy that was shooting that, he's just starting Fresno State. Doesn't have a degree. Didn't have a ton of work, but he had work that he had shown that he knew how to work independently during a pandemic too. That said a lot to me as a hiring manager.
So it's important to have a portfolio.
Yeah, he did. He had some stuff on YouTube. He had bylines in the paper online, and he had a passion about it, and I could tell in the interview. And he's doing great. So that's my most recent example. I have hired people out of Fresno City College that were journalism students that are production type people. One of the best people that I have on my staff right now, I hired out of Fresno City College. And he didn't even wind up continuing on into Fresno State. He's got his AA, but he was doing such great work at Fresno City College in 2 years. I'm like, well, let's bring you on as a part-time video editor. And our video editors do everything. They edit video, they do production in the studio, they run cameras, they direct newscasts, they run audio. This guy came in, he is one of the top employees I have. Doesn't have a college degree. He's got an AA, I still consider that a degree, but he had the passion, and he had a little bit of a portfolio coming out of Fresno City College. There's a lot of good work that happens there. So not every hiring manager is going to identify that, but I've done this enough times now that I know what I'm looking for and what attributes and what character these people have coming out of those call it a College of Sequoias, call it a Fresno City, You know, some people don't have a ton of money to go to Cal Poly or USC School of, Annenberg TV. I understand that. But what did they do with the stuff they were given and the things they had in front of them? That makes a big, big difference to me. And some of the people that I've hired that have shown that are some of the best people that we have working for us.
And if you don't like the day-to-day, like, you guys probably don't have jobs just yet, but you know people that go into the office, it's the same old thing every single day. If you're not wanting to do that and you want something new and different and being able to learn something new almost every day because you're talking to experts out there in the field, you might want to become a reporter or a photojournalist because it's different every day. And you're able to speak to people that are very knowledgeable, and you will learn while you're on the job. It's fascinating. You know, it's very high pace. If you are you don't like to spin, you don't like to be on the prowl, then maybe it's not for you. But if you are a person who likes a challenge, then that is right.
Yeah.
Am I right?
If you like to problem solve every single day and not sit there at a desk all day and doing the same thing over and over and over from 8 to 5, it's definitely a position that you would be interested in. Yeah, there's no doubt of that. And on top of that, I mean, we've also been faced with, anybody hear about the CrowdStrike issue the other couple weeks ago? Everybody had a blue screen of death because of the CrowdStrike? No? Okay.
Was it on
Microsoft, yeah.
That was a couple,
Yeah, a couple months ago. So that thing shut down most of our systems at work. But because of the great production people that we have that have been onboarded, we're able to figure out ways around that. I think one of the questions was, was it you, Allison? Is that what what's your name?
Oh, Esmeralda.
Esmeralda. You asked the question, what's complicated? Well, a hack, CrowdStrike, shutting down all of our systems that we normally operate with, but then having people that can work around things that got shut down, right? So that's a big complication. We had a hack a number of years ago that took us down for a couple of months, took out our systems. You guys heard of ransomware attacks? Yeah.
They hold the servers ransom?
They hold your server ransom. They get into your server somehow, they grab all your data, and they lock you out, and then they send you something. You give us $20 million, you can get your server back.
What did you guys end up doing?
We didn't pay. We figured out a whole way around it. We figured out new systems and new ways of doing it. We're not paying those people. I think it was somebody in Russia we figured out that was doing that. So, yeah, but that's happening. I mean, that happens all the time. There's hospitals that get nailed with ransomware. Schools get hit with ransomware attacks. So that's real. But having people that can work around issues like that is really, really good.
There's not any other questions that you guys might have?
Who wants to be a reporter?
Well,
No?
thank
Producer?
you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Talking to the students. Thank you.
Welcome.